intro. We always appreciate it when our guests work themselves or work us into their busy schedules. And in the case of our guest today, he actually canceled a manicure appointment to join us on the radio. ESPN and the SEC Network's Tom Hart. Good afternoon, Tom. Thanks.
They're still working on my feet, though. I didn't cancel the whole thing. I talked with my hands, so I needed to have them free. But the pedicure's coming along nicely. Hey, hold on. I don't like that shade.
That's gross.
Let's go pink.
Oh, it went from gross to weird. We got to get away from the foot fetish conversation. Hey, man, thanks for spending a few minutes with us. You've kind of been on the Mississippi tour for the last couple of weeks in Starkville for the Wild game against Arizona, in Oxford last week for what was kind of a strange and at times wild game against Georgia Tech, and now you're headed to Columbia, South Carolina. Let's go to the most recent game that you did, the Ole Miss-Georgia Tech game. What was your impression of Ole Miss walking away from Saturday night after seeing them in person?
Well, they're a really good game. Really good team. Georgia Tech has a long way to go, but it's still a Power 5 opponent from a major conference, and they totally dismantled what Georgia Tech wanted to do. I don't think you can talk about Ole Miss right now without putting into context what's coming up and where Alabama is. And so, after being around the team a little bit, watching them play, and seeing what's going on with Alabama, I mean, I've been wrong before, but I feel really good about where the Rebels are right now and the opponent they have this weekend, and that hasn't been said very often. Am I right, Richard? Ole Miss has only won in Tuscaloosa twice. One was under Freeze, and the other one was in '88, and after that game, somebody threw a brick through Bill Curry's office window. Like, this is a rarity, and I think they're in really good position to pull it off for a third time ever. I think they're really good, and I think from a skill position standpoint, they're only getting better as they get healthier and get more guys introduced to the offense.
And, one more nugget about that 1988 game. I was told, and I have no reason not to believe, that was the day that they dedicated the Bear Bryant Museum in Tuscaloosa, and then they had a rededication ceremony because they felt like it was not appropriate to have dedicated that museum on a day that Alabama lost a game.
That may be the most Alabama thing ever.
Yeah. What about the absence of Caden Priestcorn, which has made the tight end position non-existent? And in fairness, we haven't seen him in a regular season game for Ole Miss. And then also Trey Harris, who had 4 touchdowns in the opener and a touchdown on the opening drive against Tulane, but then he's been banged up. How much do you think that affects Ole Miss's ability to kind of do what you were talking about, possibly go in and knock off Alabama in T-Town?
Well, I'll throw the question back at you. Where do we stand with Trey Harris this coming weekend? Because my assumption was that he was building back to return on Saturday. Has that been confirmed yet?
Yeah, Ole Miss is really open with their injury policy. They just kind of lay everything out there for the public and let everybody know. No, the people that were at practice yesterday said he was in a black non-contact jersey and was watching. I think Zachary Franklin went through the motions and practiced, and Caden Priestcorn was full go. So we'll see. I'll be interested to see how that shakes out when they take the field on Saturday afternoon. Yeah, hey, you did Alabama earlier this year as well. You've seen them in person. What's going on with the Tide?
Well, I'd like to say it all starts at the quarterback position, but it's evident that it also starts with the offensive line, and obviously they're interconnected. Nick Saban told me when we were talking about transfer portal and the impacts of that, and I said, you've mentioned this in the past, that it really impacts your depth. Is that the case again? And he said, yes, most certainly, specifically on the offensive line. And he said, no, we no longer have those 2-3 year players that are good enough to play but just haven't seen the field yet, because they bounce and they go somewhere else. And so he pointed out, I think there are 3 or 4 guys they lost this offseason that in an Alabama situation, and not that they're different from everybody, but under Nick Saban they have been a little bit different. It's not just how well can you play on a given Saturday, but can you beat out the guy that's nipping at your heels on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? And they don't have that same level of competition because they don't have that same depth. The offensive line has been, despite their massive size, have been a huge disappointment. So let's start there first and foremost. But secondly, there's no secret that what ails Jalen Milroe is recognizing defenses, the processing, and no one's going to be as good as Bryce Young. He was amazing. And accuracy on intermediate throws. He throws a beautiful deep ball. But when I was at practice and what we've seen from him before, if he's throwing a crossing route, it's on a back hip or a little bit high or, a little bit low, a little bit behind. And I think that they wanted to figure out if they had something better, and the answer after the game in Tampa was an emphatic no. They don't have anything better. So it's back to square one right there, and that's where it all begins for Alabama. The defense wasn't good against Texas, don't get me wrong. However, it all starts on the offensive end in my mind.
One more thing about this Ole Miss-Alabama game coming up this weekend. It's been quite the back and forth, not directly but indirectly, between Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban. Do you think Lane Kiffin is just playing games? Do you think there's more to it in what they have seen from Alabama's defense? And do you think he was just trying to give Nick Saban something else to put on his plate and stew about this week?
I would answer yes to all of those questions. They all can be true at the same time.
That's fair.
My guess is they saw something in the game. There may have been a moment where, they had a big lightning delay, and I haven't seen this confirmed anywhere. And I'm not, but my guess is that maybe T-Rob did call a series or two. Maybe the headsets were down. That could have happened. Kevin Steele could still very much be the defensive coordinator. Lane, as you know, can be brutal. He can be honest to a fault. And if you ask him a question, he has a hard time lying in the sense that he's going to hesitate and go, maybe I shouldn't answer that. But most often he'll answer it. And whether he wanted to purposely get that out there or the opportunity just kind of arose or he was honestly answering a question, some amalgamation thereof. But I think that he was just being brutally honest. Here's what we've seen. Here's our observation. Oh, yeah, we made some phone calls over there. This is what was going on Saturday. Does he know that could also cause turmoil within those walls? Of course he does. Does he think that turmoil may give him the best chance to win or a better chance of it? Listen, he is an analytical genius. If he knows that can give them a 0.02% better chance to win because it's going to take somebody's attention off of the game at hand and somewhere else, yeah, he's going to play that card too. So I think all of that could be true at the same time.
Tom, we got a couple minutes left here. You were in Starkville 2 weeks ago. Mississippi State didn't play very well against Arizona but got the win. Last week the wheels fell off against LSU. You weren't particularly high on State in the preseason. What you saw on these past 2 weekends had to sort of confirm. Yeah, I know. You had to confirm, though, what you were thinking before the season started.
Well, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. When we talked in mid-August, I hadn't seen them. There hadn't been any games played. I thought the transition was going to be difficult. But then once I saw them and spent some time at practice and did some math, yes, people who I talked to while I was there, man, I was really high on the culture around the program, on the experience that they have, especially at the linebacker position, and having one of the league's most prolific passers returning with a good backfield and if not a great backfield. There were question marks elsewhere. But when I left Starkville after that Arizona game, I didn't leave thinking the glass was half empty. I didn't leave thinking, man, they had a hard time finishing those drives and left a lot of points on the table. I left going, they took the ball away 5 times. They showed flashes offensively of, I thought they were too conservative in that game, which might play a role in why they left points in the game. I thought there's better ways to use Will Rogers, and they're going to figure that out as they get more reps under their belt. And then I watched the LSU tape, and I went, what is this? I mean, it looked awful. It looked like they took 3 steps back. Obviously there's somewhere in between that. They're better than they showed against LSU. they need to find how to best use their quarterback and how to best use offensive philosophy, not just for Will Rogers, but going forward.
Tom, always appreciate your time.